A cop pulls his revolver on the qualification line, fires a string of magnums, and the gun cracks apart in his hands. Not a cheap gun. A Smith and Wesson Model 19, designed by a shooting legend blessed by the factory, carried by police across the whole country. It failed because of a single cut in the steel nobody at the counter ever mentioned. And the truth is, every revolver hides one of these. A buried weak point the brochure skips and the salesman doesn't know. Colt, Ruger, Smith and Wesson. 3 names, 3 legends, 3 secrets. Today, we drag all 3 into the light, because when it counts, the logo on the side strap won't save you. Knowing this will. So guys, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. The one rule that changes everything. Here's where most gun reviews lie to you. They hand a revolver to a guy at a clean indoor range, he runs a box of premium ammo through it on a sunny afternoon, and he tells you it's flawless. Of course it is. Almost any gun is flawless on its best day. But you're not buying a gun for its best day. You're buying it for its worst one. The day it's been riding dirty in a truck for a year. The day it's covered in dust, gummed with old oil, and you haven't cleaned it because there hasn't been time or power or a reason to think you'd need it. That's the day it has to work. So forget trigger feel. Forget how pretty the finish is at the counter. There's only one question that matters here. When this gun finally fails, and every gun has a breaking point, what breaks? How bad is it? Can you fix it yourself with no help coming? Run all 3 through that filter, and the legends start looking very different. Colt, the trophy that dies first. Let's be honest about the Colt before we bury it, because it deserves that much. The modern Python is, without much argument, the finest revolver being built today. That double-action trigger rolls back so smoothly, it feels less like a machine and more like something a craftsman spent an afternoon perfecting. And the new guns shoot tight groups with almost any ammo you feed them. Colt fixed the old fragility too, adding roughly 30% more steel under the top strap, and machining the modern guns to tolerances the old hand-fitted snake guns could only dream about. If you want a revolver that makes everyone at the range quietly jealous, this is the one you carry out of the shop. And that is exactly the problem, because beauty and survival are not the same thing. The Colt earns its legendary accuracy through what enthusiasts lovingly call the bank vault lockup. The cylinder turns and wedges itself against the frame with almost zero play, which is wonderful for putting rounds on paper and terrible for putting up with abuse. Every magnum round you fire sends its shock straight into that tight, delicate lockwork instead of letting the gun flex and absorb it. Run a steady diet of heavy loads through one, and over time, the timing drifts. The cylinder stops lining up perfectly with the barrel, and a revolver out of time is a revolver that spits lead, loses accuracy, and eventually becomes dangerous to fire. Here is what nobody mentions while they're admiring the finish. Putting a Colt back in time is not a job you do on your kitchen table with a punch set. It demands a genuine specialist, and those gunsmiths are getting harder to find every single year. So picture the gun that needs the rarest expert to keep running. Then imagine the day there are no experts left to call. The most expensive trophy on the shelf turns out to be the first one to leave you holding a paperweight. Smith and Wesson, the gun that bricks itself. Smith and Wesson spent more than a century earning the kind of trust most companies would sell their soul for. Walk into any gun shop a generation ago, and the first thing the man behind the counter reached for was a Smith, because the lockup felt authoritative, the sights came up clean, and the whole gun carried itself like a tool built by people who genuinely cared. That heritage is real, and nothing we're about to say erases it. The 6.86 in particular remains one of the strongest, most balanced .357 revolvers ever forged. But somewhere along the way, the company stopped being run only by engineers and started being run partly by lawyers. And that is where the survival story turns ugly. Look just above the cylinder release on most Smith revolvers built since 2001 and you'll find a small keyed hole. The internet nicknamed it the Hillary hole, and it didn't come from a designer chasing a better gun. It came from a legal settlement, back when the company was drowning in lawsuits and foreign-owned, and the attorneys decided your defensive revolver needed a tiny internal lock you never asked for. Most of the time, it sits there doing nothing but annoying purists. The trouble is what happens the rest of the time. Under the violent recoil of a lightweight magnum, that lock has been documented to jar itself upward and engage on its own. Think about what that actually means in the moment that matters. You fire one desperate round, the gun freezes solid, and the trigger simply stops working while the threat is still standing in front of you. A defensive firearm that can lock itself into a paperweight under fire is the exact nightmare survival gear is supposed to prevent. And here's the part that tells you everything. After defending that lock for over 2 decades, Smith and Wesson quietly began stripping it back out of model after model. You don't erase a feature you're proud of. You erase a confession. The cracked Model 19 from the opening was the same lesson wearing a different mask. A company that knew about a buried weak point and kept selling it anyway, betting you'd never find out until the worst possible second. Ruger, the reluctant survivor, with an asterisk. If the Colt is a trophy and the Smith is a cautionary tale, the Ruger is the gun that was never trying to win a beauty contest in the first place. Bill Ruger built his company on a philosophy you can sum up in 4 words: overbuild it so it never breaks. And when you judge a revolver by its worst day instead of its best, that stubborn, blocky, almost agricultural approach suddenly stops looking crude and starts looking like genius. Start with the spring that drives the hammer, because this is where the Ruger quietly wins. Colt and Smith both rely on flat-leaf springs that feel wonderful but can fatigue. And the Smith adds a strain screw that can vibrate loose under hard firing and leave the hammer falling too weak to set off a primer. Ruger threw all of that out and went with a coil spring that simply does not know how to quit. You could leave a GP 100 cocked in a safe for 50 years, and it would strike just as hard as the day it left the factory. There is no delicate screw waiting to back out and strand you. Then there's the part that matters most when help isn't coming. A Ruger is built to be fixed by you. The entire trigger group drops out as a single unit. The design is honest and simple, and a man with a punch set and a YouTube tutorial can do work that would send a Colt straight to a specialist. That solid frame with no side plate, locked at 3 points, just shrugs off the magnum loads that beat lesser guns out of time. Now the asterisk, because I won't pretend it's flawless. The old reputation as the cheap workhorse is dead. Prices climbed hard after 2020, and it no longer badly undercuts a Smith. Some owners report fouling that gums up the cylinder if you neglect it long enough. It's not the prettiest gun you'll own, and the trigger out of the box is the heaviest of the 3. But none of those sins will get you killed, and that is the whole point. The truth no one talks about. So you've got the picture now. The Colt dies of its own perfection, the Smith can lock itself into a brick, and the Ruger soaks up abuse but costs more than it used to. Pick the Ruger and call it a day, right? Here's where I have to stop you, because the dirty secret of this entire debate is that you've all been arguing about the wrong thing. Somebody once ran a reliability test on 14 different revolvers, firing them hard to see what would hold up. 5 of them broke before they even reached 200 rounds. Now here's the detail that should rearrange how you think about every gun we just covered. Almost none of those failures came down to the brand stamped on the side. They came down to neglect. Dry guns, dirty guns, guns that hadn't been maintained, guns whose owners assumed steel was steel and treated them like rocks that happened to shoot. Let that land for a second, because it flips the whole survival conversation on its head. The thing most likely to fail when you pull that trigger in the worst moment of your life isn't the lock work, the spring, or the forcing cone. It's you, the maintenance you skipped, the cleaning you put off because the gun ran fine last time, the cheap ammo you fed it because it was on sale. This is the part the brand war videos will never tell you, and honestly, they can't, because admitting it kills their whole format. It's a lot more fun to crown a winner and start a fight in the comments than to look a viewer in the eye and say the weak link might be the person holding the gun. But that's the survival truth, stripped of all the tribalism and the logos and the parking lot loyalty. A neglected Python, a neglected Ruger, and a neglected Smith all fail the same way, at the exact moment you needed them not to. The gun matters far less than what you do with it after you bring it home, which leads straight to the question that actually keeps you alive. What the smart survival money actually buys. So if the brand isn't the answer, what is? The shooter who actually makes it through buys 3 things, and not one of them is a logo. The first is discipline, which sounds boring right up until it saves your life. A revolver you clean, oil, and run regularly will outperform a fancier gun that lives forgotten in a drawer every single time. The man who knows his gun cold, how it feels, how it fails, what it likes to be fed, he has already won half the fight before anything goes wrong. That habit costs you nothing but a rag and a little attention, and it beats every dollar of premium you could spend at the counter. The second is ammunition you can actually find, and here the revolver hides a genuine survival superpower almost nobody bothers to explain. A .357 Magnum revolver will happily fire .38 Special too. That means in a world where the shelves are bare, you've doubled doubled the ammo your gun can run. Full power magnums when you need to reach out. Softer and cheaper 38 ES for practice, or when magnums simply aren't around. A gun that eats two of the most common cartridges in America is worth more in a real crisis than any boutique caliber bragging about its ballistics. The third is the ability to keep the thing running when the world goes quiet. Parts you can source, a design simple enough to work on, and the honest knowledge that no specialist is walking through your door to bail you out. This is the quiet reason the overbuilt, fixable gun keeps winning these conversations while the prettiest one keeps losing them. Stack those three up, and a strange truth comes into focus. The name on the side strap is the least important thing you're buying, and the most expensive name in the case is often the worst bet of all, because it asks for the most and forgives the least, exactly when forgiveness is the only thing that matters. So folks, here's where it all shakes out. Stripped of the mythology, Colt is a scalpel, breathtaking, precise, and the first to leave you stranded when there's no surgeon around to keep it sharp. The Smith and Wesson is a century of hard-earned trust with a lawyer's compromise buried in the frame, a gun that can betray you in the 1 second you can't afford it. And the Ruger is the unglamorous tank that asks for almost nothing and refuses to die, which is exactly why it keeps winning the only contest that counts. But you already know the real verdict because we landed it together. The gun matters far less than the hands that keep it running. Buy the one you'll actually maintain, feed it ammo you can actually find, and learn it cold long before you ever need it. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these three would you stake your life on? And did I get it right? Drop it in the comments because the arguments down there are half the reason I do this. If this video saved you from buying the wrong gun for the wrong reason, do me a favor and hit that like button. It's the only way these keep reaching the people who need them. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And until then, stay ready and keep your powder dry.